how many people that I wonder how many people that played this game actually understand like the donkey reference.
A few moments later.
Got to be the Enigma tool and the Krat City key he gave me. That other stuff had to be from the bad guy. Oh, the donkey reference. Oh man, I wonder if I actually have enough time to talk about this. We're at an hour and 5. Why not? Why not? Because I hit that. Because I mean, I gotta go where my mind takes me, right? All right, so this is phenomenal for anybody who's actually watched Pinocchio. There's a place called Pleasure Island where after Pinocchio had been lying for a while, he ends up going to Pleasure Island. But at Pleasure Island, these kids are allowed to do whatever they want to do. So they have no rules, no morality, no laws or anything like that. They can just be themselves, right? Well, what ends up happening is as they, indulge in all of these vices of being able to do whatever they want to do. I was checking the frames per second. It kind of looked like I was lagging a little bit there. So as they're allowed to do whatever they want, eventually they become jackasses. They become donkeys. Now, it's like the problem with that is like some people watch it and they're like, well, they become jackasses. And it's like not just jackasses. They become beasts. And what this says is something that I think we've kind of lost in modernity. It's something that Plato knew with one of my favorite books from Plato, Plato's Republic. It's something that he explored in book 2, and then he answered like in book 8 and book 9. But in book 2, Glaucon makes kind of the modernity argument for rules and morality. He's like, look, Socrates, there's no value to being moral. Not at all. In fact, morality just holds people back. Because a long time ago, people used to take from one another, and there was a bunch of weaklings that all decided, you know what, we need to come together and we need to make laws. Nietzsche would make this argument later on. But Glaucon, he made the argument that, the people who could take away something and get away with it, they are getting a terrible deal. Because the fact of the matter is, a bunch of people decided that it was worse to be stolen from than it is to steal. And that's only prevalent if you get caught doing it. All right. So basically, in a nutshell, what he's arguing for is the Pleasure Island. That morality just holds people back. There is no practical reason for morality whatsoever. And the way Socrates, Plato through Socrates at that point, argues against it is absolutely brilliant, and I feel like we've lost this nowadays. What Socrates discusses, he starts meditating on how people become tyrants, but he leaves little seeds on the practicality of morality. And in book 8, he talks about something that is used in Pleasure Island. He talks about the king of Arcadia and Zeus. So the king of Arcadia wanted to trick Zeus into eating human flesh. So he cut it up and diced it up with, other meat. But Zeus was very aware of what he was doing, and he turned the king of Arcadia into a lichen, into like a wolf, into a beast. And what that demonstrated is what Plato was kind of like talking about what happens when you start to become tyrannical. And he uses this example to show one mistake can turn you into a beast. So hold on to that, right? But the brilliance comes in book 9. In book 9, to demonstrate that morality has actual practical uses for human beings, he starts talking about the different desires human beings have. And that, there are certain desires that we need, safety, security, et cetera, et cetera. There's those kind of desires that we all have and every human needs. But there are certain desires that only the law keeps in check. The ones that some people dream about when your rationality, your reason, your ability to make a rational decision is at rest. And what he's showing here is he's planting these seeds with the lichen and then this aspect of morality, that there are some things that people ought never to act upon, to demonstrate that if one is to keep their soul in order, and the ordered soul is one where reason keeps in line our appetites and our passions, right? Anybody who's taken a test when they're exhausted, they know exactly what they mean. How it's really hard for your brain to work when you're exhausted, right? In that way, your body has a hold of your mind because you can't think clearly when that happens. But there's also the appetites, right? We have certain drugs on the market right now that completely strip a person away of their autonomy. In that way, their reason is not in control. Their appetites are in control. And for Plato, that is akin to the disharmonious soul. Now we go back, right? Okay, so reason needs to be in line in order for you to make free decisions. Because clearly, if you're too tired or you're too angry or you're on drugs, you're not making rational decisions. You're just letting the animal, the donkey from Pleasure Island, rule your decisions. Now, what does this mean for the practicality of morality? Morality keeps those things in check because you only truly make a free decision when your reason leads, not when the appetites leave, when the reason leaves. And so, as you can imagine, if you have somebody who just gets whatever they want, this is at the end of book 9 where he makes this argument. If you have somebody that gets whatever they want all the time, think about that spoiled brat that you saw when you were trying to eat and you're like, man, can you shut this kid up or whatever? They are out of control. For Plato, their soul is tyrannical. It's absolutely disharmonized where, like a gadfly, he says, you will just go wherever the wind takes you. And in that way, you are not free. You are specifically led by whatever fancy or whatever desire you want at that time. And nowadays, we are losing that. We think that being free and getting whatever we want is the only way to be free. That's not the case, because as human beings, we can do certain things that completely disharmonize our soul. Now, this gets even deeper down the rabbit hole when you start to examine the certain things that we do that goes too far. You know, in Breaking Bad, there was this great scene where Walter White was trying to decide, because he was making so many terrible decisions, when he made the decision that crossed the line. In Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov, who was an atheistic-minded individual, kills it wasn't a shop owner, it was a pawn store owner. And after that act, he was completely changed. He crossed a line. His soul was now in absolute disharmony because he made a decision that crossed the line. My favorite, Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. On the chance encounter of two police officers coming to check a murderer who buried I don't know if it was his friend, but buried somebody underneath the floorboards. His guilt overcame him. What does this show? This shows that there are certain desires and certain actions that once done absolutely destroys your soul. Imagine, think about this. There are certain things that we can see. There are certain actions we can perform. There are certain desires that we can indulge in that throw our soul into absolute disharmony. That is to say, we are led purely by our desires and our rational faculties take a backseat. One of my favorite modern movies that went over this was Smile. In Smile, the individuals either did something, in the case of the main character who didn't help her mother, or they saw something they could never unsee. I mean, I love in the beginning scene when we see the act, it just buries into the lady's mind, and it's like, good luck getting that out of your mind. It's what happens when soldiers go overseas and they meet enemies they never thought they would meet. So there are certain actions that can completely destroy your humanity. Now, here's the redemptive aspect. If we understand that, there's something beautiful to the moral law, in that it is the thing that frees us from our appetites. It frees us from being the donkey, being the beast, being the lichen, because it's the only way human beings truly make free decisions, unfettered by their anthropology, unfettered by what Kant would call heteronomy, unfettered by just desires and passions, because those are not free decisions. And then there's one more. If there are certain acts treacherous, horrendous, abominable acts that can throw your soul in disharmony, is there then a possibility that there are certain acts that can redeem an individual? How about this? Are there certain acts that can redeem humanity? Show a single act that can show the best of us and give us inspiration and give us hope. Yes. I realized this when I was at church and I was staring at the cross, and then I imagined what Jesus went through. I'm not trying to preach. I'm not very religious. I study philosophy a lot more than I study religion, but just bear with me here. Everybody turned against Jesus Christ, and they turned him into the authorities to be tortured, whipped, stripped down, embarrassed. Everything you could imagine. The worst things that could happen to an individual were done to Jesus Christ, right? And he was put on this extreme torture device, and he was nailed there for everyone to see. And yet, he never turned against humanity. Not only did he not turn against humanity, but he looked up into the sky and begged his Father, begged the Lord, not to take revenge. They know not what they do. And his closest people abandoned him. All of humanity abandoned him. And they tortured and they whipped him in the worst way. And he didn't succumb to resentment. He didn't succumb to hate. He didn't succumb to wrath or revenge or anything. He actually looked at the people perpetrating, and in his last minutes, in his last hours, because again, I'm not a historian of religion, he asked the all-powerful not to take revenge, for they know not what they do. If there is ever an act that displays the best of humanity and what humanity is capable of, forgiveness in the face of absolute malevolence and torture, it's that right there. And it makes absolute logical sense, because we all understand what happens when we act in certain ways that just drive us to lose our own autonomy. To bring it back around, the moral law, that beautiful moral law that inspired Kant's awe, may be the only thing that we can follow that truly frees ourselves. Because then other than that, we are slowly becoming jackasses on the island of, what was it called? On Pleasure Island.